Hello, lovely people. I'm Sinead, and welcome to another Craft and Chat. This week, I have gotten some interesting, to me, things done or at least made progress on. I replaced the elastic in several pairs of pajamas, which, that's a necessity, not so much exciting, but I got it done. And I have worked on pulling. I have two drawers of patterns in a file cabinet, plus various piles of patterns other places. And I consolidated all my folkwear brand patterns together. And that means the ones that Joey purchased, as well as the ones that Cloud purchased and the ones that I've purchased. And so they're all together, and we own a fair amount of the different folkwear patterns. And so now they're all in one place, easy to find, and pulled out all the patterns that we have for historical garments, costumes, anything that we're not currently going to use, or like for the next 5 years, probably not going to use. And I packaged those up and put them away so that they're not underfoot. So they're not in the way of finding what I'm looking for. And I use the folkwear patterns as reference material. I don't necessarily use the patterns themselves all that often, but I do use them as a reference material. And then the other drawer is I haven't touched. It's crafting and toys and crochet and needlework and various different patterns like that. And I didn't touch that, but it feels good to have organized the other drawer to have all the folkwear together, and so that was a big project of organization. And then I've also made progress on my knitting, the leggings, and pulled out a Yule project that I'm going to share with you here in a minute, and um, finally pulled the fabrics together to make myself a comforter cover. I have been using a silk comforter that I recently acquired. Um, my ex-husband, got the bed in the divorce. I had purchased an all-natural bed many years before him, and because of where we were living and circumstances, I didn't feel confident that the bed didn't have was I didn't have confidence that it was mold free. There was no signs of mold, there was no evidence, no one could smell it, but I didn't feel confident in it not having some residual that was going to develop later and cause issues. Not to mention, it doesn't fit in my room. The whole living situation here changed enough that it doesn't fit in my room. So that went with him, and that meant that I had to adjust. And I was sleeping on an army cot, an old army cot, and well, that just got to get that. If you've slept on one, it got old. So I have been working on replacing my bedding and trying to get natural bedding, because of the chemical sensitivities. And I had at one point uh, done almost all down comforters and down pillows, and I have discovered living here that you absolutely have to have a dryer or live in a drier climate. It is too moist here for down. They have to be sunned a lot, and we don't have sun if you don't have dryer, and you use the dryer to keep the mite population down to nothing. I mean, you have to put it through the dryer to keep it from becoming an allergen, because it's not the down or the feathers that I'm allergic to. It's the mites, the dust mites that collect and like the down, they're attracted to it. So and that's actually the allergist told me years ago, was what most people are allergic to is the mites. And so you have to, if you don't wash your pillows, you have to at least dry them in the dryer. And so living out here, that obviously was not an option since I don't have one. And using a laundromats because of the fragrance is not an option either. So I've been looking at alternatives, and I have a hard time with any bedding that's heavyweight. And I had a wool comforter, but it was too heavy. I had a hard time sleeping. It causes all the joint issues to ache, and so it wasn't a good plan. So I was like, all right, what are the other natural bedding options? And there's wool. So there's the wool comforter, and I'm like, that's too heavy. So knitting and crocheting wool blankets isn't going to help that. Not going to be able to go that direction. So I looked into silk bedding and was pleasantly surprised to find out that I could get a silk comforter for less money than a down comforter of the same quality and size. Surprised me. But, so if you're in the market for bedding and you want natural bedding, keep that in mind. Look, don't discount the silk just because it sounds luxurious. And again, one of the things that's recommended is putting even though it's a cotton covered silk, put a silk comforter cover on it. Just one of the benefits of having silk bedding, I guess. And I was like, okay, sounds great, but that means yardage. And I've had silk because of the reenactment stuff that I've done in the past. I have had silk because it's the less expensive Dupani silk is commonly used when making historical garments, and so I dove into the stuff that I have, and I found enough yardage to do most of a twin size comforter cover. It was something like 54 inches wide, so it was almost wide enough, but not quite. And I had enough to do the length there. At least I thought I did. Turned out I was 2 inches short. That's not surprising. So I got some flannel, and because yardage is not something I have a lot of. Most of my stash of fabric at this point in time is not yardage. It's scraps. And that's great for the dull stuff, but not great for doing your own clothes and your bedding, especially not bedding. So anyway, there I am trying to put this together, and I will show you kind of later bits of that process. But wow, that's a lot to deal with, the amount. And I had to piece in this cotton piece to this silk, and I don't know what's going to happen in the long run. One of the observations I am going to say is that it's heavier than the silk, so I'm glad it's just a narrow strip, and it's on the side of the bed, and it kind of works like a draft blocker. I don't actually sleep under it. It's kind of sealing off the one side so there's no drafts, and I just use it on the side towards the door. Take advantage of that, right? Anyway, I'm going to share with you the bit of that process, and then we'll move on and do a little bit of sewing on the Yule project, which I'll also share. I think the biggest challenge of making bedding is the sheer yardage that you have to fight through your machine, because I don't know anybody who has the facilities to, even for a twin bedding size, the facilities to get it through the machine easily, at least not on the home sewing front, unless you're just like really into quilting and you've invested in huge machine situation. I haven't, and I am really struggling to get this through the machine. Here's the finished comforter cover on the comforter laying on the floor. Let's see. This edge right here is the bottom edge, and it's open. So that's where I had to add a little bit of length to the silk, which the silk was not long enough. I don't know if you're familiar with Dupani. Let's see. It's the silk that has a sheen to it, bits of lines and little slubs. It gets used really often in reenactment clothing because it's an affordable silk. This silk does not cost any more than your really nice quilting cottons that you do your quilting with. the silk is in about the same price range. I didn't have enough silk, came really close, but I had to put this strip in somewhere to have enough fabric to go over the comforter, and I decided to just make it a whole strip down along the one side. And as you can see, Radar approves. He's decided to move right in and lay down on it. Here's an update on how the knitting's going on my leggings. I used short rows. I don't know if you're familiar with knitting term short rows, but basically in order to get the back taller than the front, you have to do more knitting across the back, and it needs to taper in. So these markers here are kind of like evenly spaced guidelines. So I've got the front marked and the center back marked, and I would come up to a point actually between the markers, go around to the same point on the other side, then go back to the marker. Anyway, and you continue doing that, stopping and using the markers as a guideline so that you can grow the back taller than the front. And I got carried away and I accidentally put 2 inches too much on the back and had to go last night and bring it back down. So now it's where it's supposed to be. So that's how much difference I needed between the back and the front. And now I can knit enough to where I can encase some elastic for a waistband. So I don't have that much further to go, and these will be finished and I can start using them again, which would be nice. And I might, when I get done, there's enough yarn here, I might lengthen the legs because they stop just below the knee, and I might just see if I can take that down a little further with the same yarn and make them just a little bit longer, a little bit more warmth. This is a Yule project that Joey and I have been wanting to do for a while, and we tried to get it done last year, but just did not have the energy to even begin. Ironically, I had started this. Okay, so the project is Yule vests for everyone. So that's 4 Yule vests. I had started this one, I don't know how many years ago, for someone else. And I have more of this fabric, and so the goal is to make 4 vests with this fabric as the front of the vest. And I've got the pocket is almost in on this one. I'm sewing it by hand, and you know, you really shouldn't stop before you're done. There's the needle in there and everything. This one hasn't been started. So this is my current I need to get on it project. It's going to have some hand stitching, and then I can go back and do some machine stitching. But I'll also need to be getting the other ones cut out so that Joey can help me with the sewing. And they've been waiting on that one. In fact, they kind of handed it off this summer and said, how about getting started on that? And I just didn't get to it. And I tried several times. It would sit there and it just kept getting avoided. I don't know exactly what's going on with that. But here it is, and this is one of the projects that I need to be working on. Challenge with picking up a project that you started years before is in figuring out how you were stitching it, where exactly you are in the process, and knowing that quite possibly your go-to stitch is going to be different. So this is a back stitch, but it's kind of, I believe, called a half back stitch because I don't actually touch, I don't go in exactly at the end of the previous stitch, if that makes sense. And so I don't even know why I stopped like an inch before this, except that I was struggling. This was when I was still living with the mold, the black mold. And I was struggling to focus, I think, on what it was I was doing, and I just set it aside. Maybe I set it aside to move, but it didn't get picked back up. And in all honesty, it was for my ex-husband, and obviously he's not getting it. I don't know who it's going to fit for sure, but I think it's going to be me, which is a little weird. And I have to look over here and see where am I going? What is my goal here? I'm just stitching up the end. It's okay. And this is the same silk that I just made into that comforter cover. It's this same gray silk, which I'm not even certain. I can't remember what I bought it for. I can't remember if I bought it specifically for this project or what, but there was a lot more yardage than what I was going to need for this, and I'd already cut out. Everything's cut out for this vest. So I didn't need it for this vest. I don't know, maybe I had plans back then of making more than one or something. I don't know. Okay, now that I've got that finished, I think now, did I do that with a different color thread there? It doesn't look like gray thread, but I'm gonna have to stitch down this side of the welted pocket. I don't actually know the names of the different parts of a welted pocket. But yeah, now that we've got it in and the pocket is stitched up, this part here has to be stitched down. I'm trying to make sure that it's all flat, which means I probably should go over and iron it, press, make sure that everything's going in the right direction back here on the inside. I just love picking up old projects. Yes, that was sarcasm. Okay. So I'm going to go get some different thread. One of the major differences between my size and said ex-husband is that he's long-waisted and I'm short-waisted. So I'm really not feeling like this is probably going to be a good fit. It's one of those things where I may put it together and go, well, that was fun. Nobody else is built that way. Who's going to wear it? But I don't know. It might work out just fine. I might be able to change something. I was going to make some other observations about the quilt comforter cover, but mainly, if you quilt and you make full-size bedding, hats off to you. That my grandmother and my great-grandmother were quilters. They made lots and lots of large quilts. I knew that I wasn't into it, but I didn't realize just how much work really goes into it. I mean, physical labor goes into it. Silk. That it's so labor intensive. So, yeah, hats off. That's amazing. And hopefully, this frayed business here does not get in the way of finishing that. Well, that was easy too. Now, can I do it again? I mean, like, can I repeat this welted pocket on the other front and have it actually match? That is the question. And is there some way at this point to put it together and see how it's going to fit? Because what I'm running into here, is that this is silk, and it's doing this lovely fraying, and I would really like to get it together to where, you know, that's protected, encased, enclosed, and not mess around with it a lot, or not mess around with it a lot more. That is the question. Can I do that? And then, like I said, I have more of this yardage. The reality on that is I made a dress, and the skirt was made up of the yardage without any cutting. I just took two lengths of it and stitched them together into basically a tube, and then gathered it up and attached it to a bodice. So I've taken that apart, and uh, I believe we rinsed it, not knowing what all. I mean, that one doesn't have the raw edges. All of its edges are encased and finished, and I was able to. I just decided to just leave it that way so that we could clean it and not um, risk having it turn into a mess of thread, warp and weft, all in pieces. Anyway, so this is going to be an interesting challenge that I'll be working on for the foreseeable future. And right now, I just feel kind of confused by it. Um, I'm hoping that some things are going to become a little more clear to me as I work on it some more, and I become more familiar with the fabric again. Um, oh, that's what it was about the bedding. So that strip of flannel being along the one edge, it's really kind of cool because I stack up my bedding and I roll up the comforter and use it as a bolster. And I am currently sitting on the bedding as a seat, and the bolster's the back of that seat. And it makes this cute little purple plaid flannel bolster. It doesn't, you don't, if I wanted it to be gray silk instead, I could. But yeah, the more durable, I think. I'm going to just say that I think the flannel is more durable. Although with all the silk, I do not dry clean, and I have a lot of silk. I some of it I machine wash. The Dupani I machine wash. Um, this would get just rinsed in the machine or put through on delicates. It would not be put through a wash cycle, but the Dupani gets regular wash, and um, as a result, it loses its sheen. But I've been amazed at how well it holds up, and I've made all kinds of different clothing out of it, like from pants to tops to dresses, and I don't treat it delicately. So the silk is not as delicate as you might think it was. It mostly it's about finishing the seams. If you get the seams finished properly, and you can't do this once it's done, then you don't have a problem. It's that this when the edges can get chafing, it just unravels. It just makes an unraveled mess. So as I go over and try and contemplate uh, how I'm going to move forward on this, um, I hope that you have a wonderful week and a delightful day, and that you have something special happen this week. Uh, on Friday, I hope to be working on um, a fireplace for the high rise living room. And so I haven't started it yet, and that's why I say hope. So I'll see you in the next one. Have a great time. Bye bye. I wanted to add a little addendum here at the end. I meant to mention it earlier, but forgot. That seems to happen a lot. um, in order to encourage me to make more dolls and go in the direction that I would like to go, I need to move along the dolls I have already created. If I've got a bunch of dolls in stock that aren't moving, I am not inclined to make more. So I want to make an offer to those of you that are still here to encourage you to contact me to make an offer on any doll that's in stock. So that means Granny, the sheep, any little fairy dolls, and I think there's a couple of other dollies that anyway, that if it doesn't have the word custom in front of it on the listing, it's in stock, and it'll say that in the description. To be clear, both the custom dolls that are not in stock that you special order and the dolls that are in stock, their description makes it clear whether or not they're in stock or not. So on in-stock dolls, contact me with an offer if you would like to purchase one of the dolls, and we can start a discussion and hopefully find some homes for some dolls. Thanks for sticking around. See you next time.